Alrighty, shalom and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We have a very special interview here with Mrs. Taylor Rockett over here, who is running for district attorney.
My opponent, Mr. Walker, has been sort of the head assistant in Burke and Caldwell counties for the past several years. And there are some things that, as you said, that he has done or implemented or failed to that I would like to see change, that I would like to see done differently. Yeah. And if your viewers have followed me for any period of time, that they know that I am very heavy on emphasizing the prioritization of repeat offenders. I think we can all remember a time, probably in the not so distant past, that we saw something on a news article, on TV, on Facebook, something where a person was arrested, and it comes out that person has been arrested several times for the same thing or for similar crimes, or maybe their crimes are getting worse. And the comments are always full of, why is this person back out on the street? Why is this person, being let loose to continue this behavior? And some of that is going to happen no matter who's in charge, mm-hmm. but some of that can be addressed. And it would be certainly one of my highest priorities to start changing that pattern.
Absolutely. And one of the things I did something interesting. I ended up going into ChatGPT and I asked it, I said, what are the differences between Mitch Walker and Taylor Rockett? You want to know what it says?
Sure.
It says in there that, it says that Mitch Walker doesn't have any sort of positions on anything from what they can find on social media and all this stuff. And basically that it's just kind of relying on his name is the way he's running a campaign. Now, the way I look at things, the way you run a campaign is going to indicate how it is that you're going to run your office. And for you, however, it had a lot of information, most notably about your faith. And it kind of saw you as a person because you're, very transparent on quite a few things.
Yes, I am. I can't, and I won't waste people's time really speaking to Mr. Walker or how he is conducting himself for his campaign, but I can speak to myself and sort of the things that I believe are important and what I have done or tried my best to do and to convey to the public that I think is important about me as a person, and I think is the best sort of indicator of what kind of leader I would be and what kind of decision maker and community servant that I would be. And, people always talk about, separation of church and state. And yes, that is true. That just means that church leaders aren't also state leaders. That means that there is a different leader for the church and a different leader for the government. That doesn't mean that you can't bring your faith into the government. Exactly. And the fact of the matter is, I as an assistant district attorney and as an elected district attorney will, of course, be guided by and bound by the law, the Constitution, the statutes, case law, that kind of thing. But my guidepost as an individual for making decisions has always been and always will be my faith. I'm a devout Christian. I was raised in church and in the Southern Baptist Church. I continue to go to the same church that I was raised in, and it's where I've really found my grounding for what is right and what is wrong. And I can't think of a job where it's more pertinent for a person to have a strong, honest, moral sense of what is right and wrong than a district attorney. We have an overwhelming amount of discretion. We are faced with difficult decisions every single day, and those decisions are quite literally life-changing for the people involved in them. And if you don't have a grounding in truth and reason and honesty and morality and integrity, you're not going to be able to adequately serve the community or the office that you seek. That's my opinion, and that's the type of person that I strive to be every day, both in my life and in my job.
Absolutely. And one of the key elements in terms of what it says in the scripture in terms of these things is that when going and rendering judgment and all that stuff, to not be swayed to the left or the right. And it always goes and talks about, basically not stacking the deck, always being objective. And that right there, I think, is absolutely critical because one of the things that we always end up seeing are like sweetheart deals that are given to friends, stuff like that. That tends to happen in quite a few courts. I'm not just saying here, but also quite a few others. And the thing that was so interesting about those courts during the days of the Bible and the Sanhedrin and all that stuff is that it was really interesting the way that it was done. I know I'm getting slightly off topic here, but I think this is interesting information here. That you would have half of the judges on the Sanhedrin would go and act as prosecutors. The other half would be lawyers. And then they were told halfway through the trial to switch, to make sure that the absolute correct ruling was given. And, I sit there and I say to myself, in many ways, I think kind of our courts need to be done that way because we see the things being stacked with, high powered attorneys and things like that.
Absolutely.
And, it's one of those things that it's just like, if we were to ever go and change the court system a little bit, I think that'd be the way to do it.
Yeah. I mean, we have by design, we have an adversarial system of court, of our criminal justice system. And we all have to work together. We all, the defense attorneys, the prosecutors, the judges, the clerks, the bailiffs that, handle courtroom security, we're all together every day. We work together. We see the same craziness together. But we all have our roles. And I'm a big podcast listener, and I was listening to a podcast not too long ago where the person said our system of justice works and continues to work because we as a people, we as a society believe in it, and that really, I guess, sort of resonated with me in that if you have a system of justice where people can't, trust it, believe in it, believe that it's true, respect it, that kind of thing, it's never going to survive. If the people think, okay, well, a ruling was made, but it was fraudulent or it wasn't fair or it was paid for, there's going to be no respect for that ruling. And that's obviously in some cases we can implement those rulings by force, right? If you're sent to jail, you go to jail. We take you there forcefully, but not all the time. And if we as a society, and I'm getting a little sort of high picture here, but if we as a society don't trust and respect and honor and revere our system of law, the rule of law, then it fails. It is no longer successful. It is no longer operational, really. And I think that when you have, for instance, candidates for district attorney who are bankrolled by name after name after name after name of defense attorney, that's a problem. And it's not because I think those defense attorneys are bad people. I work with them every day. I've used some of their services to buy my house or, whatever my legal needs may be. They're not bad people. That's not
they're obligated to their client.
Correct.
That's
have
the thing people
job.
have to realize.
Yes.
Yeah.
But someone told me to stick to politics and not sports because I'm not good at it, but I actually love sports. So I'm going to try it again. If we have two teams here and this team is telling this team to do something, no one on this team is going to be crazy enough to be like, yes, that's clearly for our benefit. They're always going to say, oh, you must be telling us to run the ball because you have someone that can catch our wide receiver or whatever. They're never going, I guess what I'm trying to say is they're never going to help you beat them. No. That makes no sense. There is no rationale there. So it is incumbent upon people in my mind to look at the nature of this campaign donation trend that we have for Mr. Walker and ask themselves why a dozen or more, I honestly didn't count, but a dozen or more local defense attorneys have given him thousands of dollars. Why?
That is concerning. That is
So
concerning.
concerning.
Yeah,
And
especially.
I'm not, it's not assumption or pontification. It's fact. It's in black and white, filed with the Board of Elections, and I have none from defense attorneys. I have not asked for it, but I also wouldn't accept it for two reasons. Number one, I want to do this job for truth and honesty, and I don't want to be beholden to anyone, and I don't want to even. The second reason, I guess, would be I don't even want to have the appearance of impropriety or dishonesty or favoritism. That's a threat to the very fabric of our court system. That's a threat to the very fabric of the impartiality of law. Again, back to my sports analogy here. Why am I donating to the opposite team to hire a coach? That doesn't make sense, right? And I mean, I think you may hear someone say, "Oh, well, I live in this community, and I want my family to be safe too." Well, that may be the case, but have you voiced that? Is that the opinion? Is that what you have been campaigning on? Because I haven't seen that argument out there. The argument that I've seen is, "Oh, I know him. He's been around a long time. I've known him for a long time, and I like the guy." Wonderful, great. We all deserve friends, right? But does that mean that he's honorable and upstanding and going to make the right decisions in the face of difficulty and pressure? No one's alleged that.
That also doesn't mean that because they're your friend that they're fit for a position. It seems that we have this mindset nowadays that it's like I'm voting for that guy because he's my friend, and it's like, oh no, dude. Is he able to do the job? That's the thing you need to be looking at. Because I can think of many things that I am just absolutely stupendous at. And I'm like, you don't want to hire me to do that other thing.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. And a lot of let me choose my words wisely here. To my knowledge, the only thing that I have seen sort of thrown at me is my age and an alleged lack of experience. And I always find that really interesting because there's never been an argument that there is a lack of results from me, that there is a lack of dedication, a lack of effort, a lack of focus, a lack of service, a lack of work ethic, none of those things, just a lack of experience. And honestly, I have a hard time even really taking that seriously because I am immediately reminded of the likes of Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton. You want to talk about experience? These people have been in taxpayer-funded government positions for eons, and they have gotten rich off of it. And I challenge anybody to point me to a real change, a real result that any of those three have instituted to make their experience worth something. I mean, I can sit here and tell you I'm experienced at chewing gum. I am a habitual gum chewer. But has that changed anyone's life? Has that made my life better? Has that bettered society? No. So I'm really lost on the experience thing here. Again, if looking at the presidents, they really harped on Donald Trump about that. Oh, he's not experienced. Oh, he, has never done this before. And Joe Biden's done this or whoever, Hillary Clinton's done this. She knows what this is like. She has the relationships. And again, I'm running in a Republican primary, so I think most people are going to have a similar opinion of Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. But the one thing that we have seen since Donald Trump took office is that all of a sudden, we as a society have realized that we're sick of politicians. We are sick of people with experience galore and no results. that's not helpful. And if we allow you to continue sitting in that office, gaining experience, but making no difference, it's for naught. There is no benefit to the people.
I think you were at the last meeting that we had for the what was it? The convention, the convention meeting in Valdez, where it was talked about by one of the candidates, where people were told by the city manager how to vote. They weren't reading these things themselves. This is what's going on, guys, in your local government. Yes. It's time to get rid of some people.
Yeah, I mean, it was never meant to be a rule by the few. It was meant to be a rule by the people. And the criminal justice system is the same way. Obviously, not everyone's a lawyer. Obviously, not everyone wants to be in the court system, and sort of be a part of how that works. And I get that and I appreciate that. But it's not meant to be for a select few. It's not meant to be for only members of a certain club. It's meant to be run by and for the people. The sole job of the court system is to serve the people, is to ensure that the rule of law is being upheld, that individuals are being held to the same standard, no matter their background, their name, their gender, their race, their beliefs, their politics, whatever. And in my mind, you have to have a person in leadership positions, whether it's the judge, the district attorney, in some places they have a public defender's office, whether it's the public defender, whoever, their goal has to be, and their allegiance has to be, to the rule of law, to the application of law, to the proper administration of justice, as we like to call it. Because the second that our eyes are taken off of that, we are starting to fail our people. We are starting to treat people, and maybe not even consciously, but we begin to treat people differently. We begin to have subconscious tendencies one way or another. And when you're guided by a conviction from whether it's your faith, whether it's your sense of justice and decency, whatever it is, when you're guided by a conviction that simply urges you and drives you to want to do the right thing and to answer to the people for the things that you do because you believe that they are the right thing, some of that other stuff goes away. And it kind of goes back to the whole being paid for by defense attorneys. When I haven't taken your money, when you haven't funded let's say my radio ads, for example, and you come up to me and ask for something, even if it's simple, but you want me to do something out of the ordinary, there's no pressure on me to make a decision other than the one that I believe is right. I hope I'm making sense here, but what I'm trying to say is if I allow my guideposts to be what indwells in me as a person and convicts me to do the right thing, if that is the only thing guiding me in this job, I am much more able and equipped to make honest, upright, fair decisions because there's no outside noise in my head affecting me. That's what I'm trying to say. And that is the only reason, sincerely, the only reason that I signed myself up for this election. That is the only reason that I have, put my life on hold at 35 years old to do this and to dedicate quite literally all of my time to this, is because I was so burdened by what I felt were failures in our criminal justice system, specifically with, the current leader, I guess, of that in Burke and Caldwell counties, that I really just decided the Lord was not going to leave me alone until I stepped up to serve, because I said it to you a little bit ago, nothing irks me more than someone who doesn't vote and then complains about the results. It's kind of like when you have a headache and you refuse to take headache medicine and you're just going to sit around and talk about how bad your head hurts. Like, I don't want to be that person. Yeah. And here I am.
I'm a type 1 diabetic, so it's like, if I sat back, it's like, why is my blood sugar 300? I don't think I'm going to get my insulin shot. I mean, it's one of those situations.
And then complaining about how bad you feel. Like, it's silly. It makes no sense.
Exactly.
Like, if there's a problem and you're not going to be part of the solution, then sit down and hush.
100%. Now, one of the things that is definitely on people's minds right now is the current drug problem that is just getting worse in our area. And the thing I notice is I like to play this little game. When somebody goes and gets arrested, I like to go and look at the list of charges. Why are these people being busted with methamphetamine over and over and over again and distributing it and constantly going to jail, being back out within a couple of days? What's going on here? And what needs to change?
I could talk about this topic probably until we run out of battery in our computers. But the first, well, let me be clear, first of all, that if I sat here and told you that I could solve that problem, I would be lying to you. But what I can tell you and be completely confident in is that I can do better than what we have now, that I can have better results than what we are currently seeing. And I'll tell you a couple of what I perceive as the biggest issues sort of allowing this to happen. And one is that since Arena's law, since the beautiful Ukrainian young lady that was killed on the train, we have had a renewed focus on pretrial release, on bond, on that kind of thing. You are entitled to a bond as a criminal defendant. Bond is not meant to be punishment. It is meant to do two things. Number one, secure your attendance in court. And number two, protect the community or prevent your flight if either of those two are concerns based on your conduct and your history. It's not meant to be punishment. Obviously, you're not convicted of anything. So people are and will always be entitled to bond in most situations. Obviously, that changes if you're, convicted of murder, if you're convicted of armed robbery, of rape. We now have new presumptions built into statute that say the presumption is going to be if you commit, a certain handful of these super dangerous, violent offenses, that you're not going to be entitled to bond. And you can overcome that presumption, but that presumption is going to exist. So a couple things in the bond sort of world. The district attorney doesn't set bonds. They never have. They never will. Judges and magistrates set bond. However, to insinuate that the district attorney has no part in the setting of bonds is felonious.
Exactly.
Is fictitious. I'm sorry, no, it's not felonious. It's fictitious. Because we do have bond set hearings. We do get to be involved in that stage of the proceedings in many cases, especially if a person is already out on pretrial release. So let's say I caught you with methamphetamine 3 weeks ago and you made your bond and you're out waiting on trial, but then I caught you with methamphetamine again yesterday. The new Pretrial Integrity Act requires you to be held without bond until you can go before a judge, except for in certain extenuating circumstances where it may take too long to get to a judge. But in that scenario, the district attorney's office is also going to be present when you go before the judge. And we can say, look, judge, he's got 8 convictions for possession of methamphetamine. He was out on bond when this happened. His bond conditions required him to have no controlled substances. He obviously knows that, he's on pretrial release for the same sort of behavior. Mm-hmm. What are we going to do about this? And, I don't expect this person to be held without bond because in the grand scheme of how our statutes rank charges, the possession of methamphetamine is a low-level felony, but it should mean something to that judge that this person is a repeat offender. And as the prosecutor's office, we should take that into consideration when we're doing things like arguing for bond, making plea offers, indicting cases, choosing what crimes to indict, that kind of thing. And so the first thing, just to sort of wrap that up, the first thing that I would say is we as the district attorney's office can, should, and will, under my administration, be much more involved in arguing for bonds. Doesn't mean we're going to get what we ask for every time, but we will be the squeaky wheel. We will
This is
make
why we
these
also
judges.
need, that's why we also really need good judges as well.
100%. But we will make these judges say in open court, okay, Ms. Rockett, I understand that this person has been convicted of this X number of times and was out on bond at the time that this, crime was committed, but I'm only going to give them $1,000 bond. If that's what you as a judge feel is the right thing to do, I can't stop you. That's within your discretion. But you're going to have to say, to the society and to all the people in that open courtroom that is what you believe is correct, if it is. And I tend to believe that we'll start seeing less and less of that since we've sort of had these experiences like Arena's very public execution on a train. I mean, no judge wants their name on that bond set. You know what I'm saying? And so It's up to the DA's office to bring this to the forefront and say, look, judge, you make the decision. It's your call, but these are the concerns. And these are why I think this person is dangerous and shouldn't be released on just a piddly little bond. Like if ever a person, has been abusing the bond sort of privilege, it's this person. Now, the second thing that I will say is, and again, if your viewers have been paying attention to me at all, they're going to be like, oh, here she goes, because this is sort of my soapbox. But the North Carolina general statutes allow us to indict individuals with 3 or more previous non-overlapping felonies as habitual felons. When you indict a person as a habitual felon, it's a status, not a charge, meaning you indict them with their current felony, and then you indict them as having the status of habitual felon. And when you do that, you elevate their felony level 4 points. So let's say if they're charged with a class I felony, it would go up 4 points. What is that? F, G, H, I, something like that. And that makes a huge difference in the penalties that they face, whether it's, active time or whatever it may be. It very often takes a person who would not be eligible for an active prison sentence under our structured sentencing laws and elevates them to a level where they would be eligible for an active prison sentence. And again, the argument has been made to me that, we're just sending people, maybe just sending people to prison isn't necessarily the answer. I agree. But we're not talking about, first or second or third time offenders, because to be a habitual felon, that has to at least be your 4th. So how many chances are we giving these people? And the argument has also been made to me, coming into recovery is difficult and you're going to fail several times. You are. And I've never been, a recovering drug abuser. I can't relate to that personally. But what I can say is that as much as I want to help, individuals who are addicted to substances, I also have to recognize as a district attorney that there is another side of that story, which is the public who are being victimized by the crimes created from their drug use. Does that make sense? So
absolutely.
I would love for us to get every drug user clean. I would love for us to eradicate drug abuse. We would not even recognize our society if we eradicated drug use. It has been estimated that over 80% of criminal offenders abuse drugs or alcohol. 80%. We would have empty jails that looked like ghost towns if we could get rid of that. And we're never going to, but we can certainly make policies and prosecution priorities that help us. If you're on your 4th felony and you qualify as a habitual offender, my office is going to indict you as such. And maybe it's because sending you to prison is a good way to help you get clean. Or maybe it's because the person that you continue to burglarize or steal from or wreck your vehicle into when you've driven under the influence of those drugs, maybe it's because they deserve some justice. Regardless of the reason, a 4th chance is plenty. And it doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It doesn't mean that you don't deserve to get better. It doesn't mean that you don't deserve help. It means that I have a duty to the people that are being victimized by your criminal behavior to stop it. Period.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think a lot of it kind of comes down to the culture that we're in now, where drug use has kind of become normalized. If you go and you click on a live stream on YouTube, you'll see people sitting over there smoking pot and all that stuff. I ended up going and getting some CBD oil for my, I have a hard time sleeping. So, it's like, well, I got to get up at 5:30 in the morning every morning, so I ended up going to do that. And taking the amount of Benadryl I'm like, that's horrible on my liver. I'm not going to keep doing that. And the first question I was asked when I went in there is, how much THC you want? And it's like, none. Yeah. Why is this normal that you're asking me this?
Yes. Yep. Yeah, it is. And you go in other cities, and thank God I don't live in them, but you go in other cities, even Asheville. And we went a couple of years ago and took my niece, who was little at the time. I guess she was, probably 3. And we took her to see Paw Patrol live with my sister, my husband, and myself and my sister and my niece went to see Paw Patrol live. And after we left the show, we were walking just a little bit down the sidewalk to get something to eat. And we walked past this little corner flower bed sidewalk grassy area. And there were probably 10 people in there, and 2 or 3 of them were actively preparing their needles, pipes, various implements of ingestion with their drugs.
Right out there in the open.
Yes. No hiding it. Nothing. And my husband is a sheriff's deputy. I'm a prosecutor, of course. And we just look at each other, and then we look at my niece, who's, innocent and beautiful and 3 years old. And it's like the dichotomy is breathtaking. Like the thought that this is even in her view right now is terrifying and infuriating. And that's not the world that I want to live in. That is not the world that I want to raise my child in. That is not the world that I want my niece to continue to grow in. We got to do better. And thankfully, in our, small town USA home, we haven't gotten there yet. But the key word there is yet. And that's how it starts.
I think it's there.
It starts by, yes. Well, and it starts by giving an inch, right? Give an inch, they take them out. It starts by letting that person have his 5th chance. And then I let him have his 5th chance. So now this guy deserves his 5th chance. And before we know it, we've cut off our nose to spite our face. We're making all these promises to individuals who are abusing it. And it has nothing to do with the person in my job. It has to do with the fact that I swear an oath, as right now an assistant district attorney, and then hopefully later as a district attorney, to protect you, the innocent member of society that is just living and paying your taxes and going to work and raising your children. It is my job to do everything that the court system allows me to do to not let your home become that.
Absolutely. And I've seen it really go downhill big time in downtown Morganton. I lived in downtown for 15 years. And I remember downtown used to be this place for families. That's what it used to be. It used to be a family city. And I had to move the heck out of downtown because of the fact that the drugs had gotten so bad. And they decided, you know what, we want to turn this into Little Asheville. The bad side of Asheville is what we want to turn this into. And I'm hoping that some people that are running for city council reach out to me, because I think a lot of this stuff needs to be talked about in downtown, of what the culture has become over there. When I have to walk through the sidewalk and I'm finding needles on the ground, this is a problem. This is not something that happened 15 years ago.
No. And again, this is, in my opinion, this is why you don't want people who are all intertwined in the same sort of group or the same system running all of your local government, running all of your elected offices.
Exactly.
Because at the end of the day, if I if I am dropping the ball, if I am making decisions that are not up to par or that are not serving the needs of my community, I fully expect for someone, whether it's, people that work for me, whether it's my family, whether it's other elected officials, to say, hey, Taylor, this is not going well. And you need to pick up, your slack. You need to make some changes, because as much, unlike some other elected positions like county commissioner, the district attorney's office the district attorney's position is a job. It's my full-time job. And, so that makes it a little bit different than kind of these people who serve, ancillary to their regular
absolutely
careers. But, I want my service to better my community. I want my service to leave a lasting positive change on the place that I love and call home. I've had, numerous different opportunities in my lifetime between college and law school and sort of just other endeavors that I could have moved to a location of my choice. I could have stayed in Columbia, South Carolina, where I went for law school and built my roots there and worked there and had a great life, made a great living. And I didn't. I could have moved back to Charlotte, where I went for undergrad, and had far more opportunities than there are here. But I didn't do that, and I didn't do it because I love this place. I mean, one of the greatest blessings that I feel like has bestowed upon me is where I was born and raised. Not just as an American, but as a Burke Countyan, as a small town girl in God's country, and I'll be danged if I just sit here and watch it fall apart because we have people who are more interested in serving themselves than they are for serving their community. That's just not gonna fly for me.
Absolutely. Now, one of the things that people have been taking issue with recently that I have seen pop up a little bit is a little bit of the issue with the backlog of the courts right now in Burke and Caldwell County. What do you think the solution is to that? And if there's not really a solution to it, could you explain why it is what it is right now?
Well, I actually am a little bit unclear of where that kind of came from. There's an old adage, the wheels of justice turn slowly. And we as prosecutors say it all the time. And we sort of say it with a smirk on our face because it sounds goofy, but gracious, has anything ever been truer? Obviously COVID brought things to a screeching halt. And some things were done that were a little bit out of the ordinary to sort of address that. But I think we're generally past that now. But I know that people prefer their cases to move more quickly. I know that people prefer things to be more expeditious. And there are things, and I'll give you the perfect example. I actually had a law enforcement officer from an agency in Burke County that I won't name for his benefit. Call me what's today? Today's Sunday. Yesterday. Called me yesterday on Saturday. And I have never met him. He was hired after I was transferred out of Burke County. And he said, I want to know why these DWIs that I'm charging are hanging out in the court system for years. For years. And I'm sort of going to give you a little bit of inside baseball here because this is an odd thing that I think, unless you work in the court system, you don't know. And that is that if a defense attorney needs a continuance, meaning needs the case that they have in court that day continue to a new day, they can pretty much get it. And I'll explain why. Because defense attorneys in our area where we don't have a public defender's office, they practice in multiple different counties in multiple different courts. And so let's say I have a DWI trial scheduled today as me as the prosecutor, and it's with defense attorney A. Defense attorney A can then come in and say, look, Judge, I know that we were going to try this DWI, but one of my clients in family court had something happen over the weekend, and we have an emergency custody hearing over in this courtroom at 10 o'clock, and I expect it to last all day. And, it's about whether or not this person is going to get to see their child again for the next 6 months. And And judge, I've just got to be there for that.
Yeah.
Some judges will say, nope, sorry, this has been scheduled, but very, very few. And I'm not insinuating that the defense attorneys are lying. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is there is always another case that they could be doing. There is always another court that they could be in. There is always another county that they have cases in. And that's just the fact. So if my case, if my DWI that I really wanted to try today is not also their number one priority, they can get out of it. And so every once in a while, some judges will say, nope, sorry, this has been planned. It's been continued 28 times. We're trying it. And that does happen. And sometimes defense attorneys are as ready to get that case over with as I am, and they show up and try their cases. That does happen as well. But there are only, the prosecution is only one party in the court system. Only one.
Yeah.
And while we have a lot of pull, we don't have all the pull. And the best thing that I can do in any case, a DWI, a felony, a misdemeanor, or whatever, is say, here are all my witnesses. They're all lined up. They're all ready to go. We've been prepared. We have our exhibits ready to go. We're ready to start picking a jury and make that judge kind of say, nope, sorry, state, you're just going to have to do it another day. This defense attorney needs to be excused for blah, blah, blah. And that happens. And that's just sort of a fundamental difficulty in the system. When you have areas with a public defender's office, you have much less of that because the civil attorneys aren't also the criminal attorneys. Does that make sense? So they're specific, like public defenders are specific to this county and this court, whatever, and it allows them to be much more efficient. But we don't have that in Burke or Caldwell County. So that's one of the reasons. And I'm not blaming the defense attorney. That's just a fact. They are pulled in 1,000 different directions and it causes cases to languish longer. And then the other is, like I said before about judges, I can sit here and make every case with every reason in the world to a judge and ask him or her to force, this defense attorney to fish or cut bait. But if the judge says, no, sorry, they have a good reason for me to give them a continuance, I can't do anything about that. And this particular officer that I was talking to said, I'm so sick of being called to court or being told that this is likely to be a trial. And I show up to court and sit there for however many hours just to be told, we're going to continue it. We're not going to get to it today. And he's like, I worked night shift. I'm tired. I should be sleeping. I work again in 4 hours and we've done nothing. And while sometimes that's unpreventable, what I think would mean a lot to that particular law enforcement officer is if instead of going to the back room and having a chat with the defense attorney and coming back out and telling the officer, oops, sorry, you can go home now, is if I said in open court, look, judge, you see this officer right here? He worked last night, but I told him 3 weeks ago that we were going to try this case today. So instead of going home and taking off his vest and his boots, he came here and he's been sitting in that chair right there waiting on this defense attorney to show up so that we could try his case. And this is not the first time that he's been here. And this is not the first time that he skipped sleep to be here. And we've always had some reason to continue this case. Judge, I ask that you not do that again. Just as the defense attorney is entitled to time to prepare their case and a speedy trial and whatever, the state is also entitled to holding the defense attorney's feet to the fire and saying, we've given you time. We've the court has heard your arguments, but it's enough. And he's here and you've had time to prepare and you've had the discovery for months. We need to move this case. And I think it would mean so much to that officer if he heard the prosecutor stand up and fight for him and say, this is out of hand. This is not appropriate anymore. And if we're overruled, if the judge says no, then the judge says no. But just the feeling of having someone in the prosecutor's shoes saying, he's here and he's done his job and he's made his sacrifice. Let's do it. I think that means the world to them. I do. And it's just not happening.
And you know what? I'm going to have to clip that part and give it to my brother because my brother's a police officer. So he'll be very happy to hear that.
I love it. It's true. It's the truth.
Absolutely. 100%. And I think also another thing about all of this as well, in terms of when people talk about the backlog, is that first of all, a lot of evidence has to be collected so that a good case is given a lot of the time. And that type of stuff, to make sure that you get a conviction of these scumbags that are out there, it's important that the time is taken to make sure all the ducks are in order to be able to get a good prosecution of these violent criminals.
For sure. And depending on the type of crime, let's say it's something that involves a Facebook search warrant or a phone download or something of that nature. I know that most people have never sent off a search warrant for Facebook, but it doesn't come back in a day. It doesn't come back in a week. Sometimes it doesn't come back for 6 months. And you're not going to, if you have a reason to arrest a person for possession of child pornography, you're not going to let them sit there for 6 months while you wait on that Facebook search warrant before you arrest them. That's madness.
Exactly.
So while we are continuing to prepare our case, we're also continuing to gather evidence. But on top of that, let's say it takes 6 months for us to get that search warrant from Facebook, for us to get that back. I don't know what you do on your Facebook, but I got a lot of crap on there because I'm constantly sharing memes or responding to my sister or, whatever. And those search warrant returns can be literal banker's boxes worth of information. So somebody has to sit down and go through that. And not only that, but somebody has to figure out who young boy 53 is so that we can figure out who young boy 53 is in their messages, and then sort of follow the breadcrumbs of the investigation to see where it ends. And there may be 25 more charges for 25 more people. It's not a game of Clue. It's not, it was the Colonel Mustard with the candlestick in the auditorium. No, it's usually, Colonel Mustard teamed up with, I can't remember all the characters here, but teamed up with Tom Smith, and they went to, young boy's house, and they picked up a Glock with the serial number filed off, and they went to over here, and 5 shots were fired, and then they threw it in the lake, and then, and so you're like, well, I got to figure out who had the gun, who pulled the trigger, who young boy is, because I know he was there, but I don't know his real name. And then I've got to figure out where the gun went and who had it and who filed the serial number off, and was it stolen? If it was stolen on what day, so we can figure out who stole it. It's not linear. They're not.
Definitely not.
These things are not linear at all. And they often involve more people doing more things than we originally believe. And finding them down and figuring out how to prove the things that they've done is a process.
It definitely is a process, and I think it also gets into one of the things of basically the transparency of a lot of stuff. And I don't think that some people really get it, especially a particular podcaster who used to be a very big political influencer in the whole Charlie Kirk thing. Why am I not getting the text messages that the FBI got and all that stuff? Well, there's a reason for that. It's because of the fact that you could be harming the case by stuff, not being held within. Transparency is good in many ways. Certain things, it definitely doesn't need to be there.
Yes, and it's actually really funny that you brought that up, because I have stopped listening to that certain podcaster because those allegations were driving me quite literally insane.
Yeah, and there's another reason I quit listening to that podcaster as well.
Yes, and I'm like, yes, and I'm like, do you really think that you are owed inside information into an ongoing investigation? Or better yet, that you are owed inside access to another individual's phone records? That's insane. I mean, even if the person is convicted or charged with a crime, that doesn't mean that we share, their bank records with every Tom, Dick, and Harry in the world.
Exactly.
what's the benefit of that? And I'm about the most transparent person in the world. I mean, if you go on my campaign Facebook page, I'll tell you anything. I'll tell you that that I'm tired, that I've had a bad day. I'll tell you anything because that's who I am as a person. But I'm not going to show you, the images or the text messages from the cases that I'm working. That's crazy. And it's not because I'm selfish or I want to hide things from people. It's because there's a time and a place. If you go to a school, they're not going to show you the records of their students. That's crazy. If you go to a business right over here, they're not going to pull their personnel files and let you look through them so that you can make sure they're doing it right. That's crazy. And so I think, we live in the information age where we do get a lot more information thrown at us than we ever have. But good grief. This is not meant for mob rule. This is not anarchy. There are people in places that you have elected them to be, that you are entrusting to vet this information, to go through it, to analyze it, and to make a decision based on it. And that does not entitle you as just a general person to know everything about everything. It would be unsafe and irresponsible for that to happen. And I could go on about this forever, but there will be very clear signs in many, many, many different sort of scenarios that allow you as the general public, as just a regular civilian, to know whether your elected official is doing shady things or not. I feel like the truth is usually pretty easily spotted, and lies are often brittle and fall apart quickly. And you don't need to know the inside baseball of everything to be able to determine if right is being done.
Exactly. Well, I want to end it with this question here. Well, two questions. First of all, where can people go and get the information about further on your stances on several things, to go and see, if you're the person that they should vote for in the primary?
Yeah, so my website is rockettforda.com. Rockett has two T's, so that's ROCKETTFORDA.com. And that is honestly one of my proudest things that I have for the public to see, because I didn't put it together because I don't know how to make websites, but I wrote everything on it. And it's all about me as a person, about me as a prosecutor, about what I think and how I conduct myself and what I believe, and sort of the concepts that guide me and what I believe is important based on, my experience, my life, my, time growing up here. It's really as open and honest as I could be, as I know to be. And so if you take the time to read those things, you're gonna know me. But the other is to go to Taylor Rockett for District Attorney of Burke and Caldwell Counties on Facebook. I, one time back in the summer, made a video of myself quite literally talking to my phone, and shared it. And it got a far higher number of views than I expected. And several people who are close to me and work with me, and several law enforcement officers reached out to me, and they were like, this is what you need to be doing. You're so relatable. You just by nature are honest, brutally so. And so it has not always been comfortable, but I have made it a sort of a habit of getting on my Facebook and recording myself. It's almost always in my car because I am busier than I've ever thought possible. Of me just sort of telling people my thoughts on things as they come into my head, or based on, an experience I had that day, or a conversation that I had with a voter, or something that's been in the news, or something that's been asked. Sometimes people send me questions and ask me, hey, what do you think about blah, blah, blah? And I think you can tell a lot about a person in the way that they speak. And I don't mean, the way that they speak, but I mean like the way that they carry themselves, the way that they conduct themselves, how open they are, how honest they are, how believable they are. That's what we ask juries to do when we put a person on the stand in a trial. We ask a jury to observe them, to watch their body language, to listen to how they use their words, the faces they make, the sort of the ease with which they testify and make a decision. Do you think that person is honest? Do you think that person is genuine? And so I've said on my Facebook page many times, I'm asking you all, the general public, the electorate of these two counties, to hire me for a job. And as most employers would, it would be really wise for you guys to interview me, to see what you think of me, to see if you think I would be a good fit, to see if you think I have 100%. The demeanor that is appropriate for the job. And so I said in one of my videos, and I'll say it here, I can't hold a Trump rally. I can't just go out and, meet with vast numbers of the public on a regular basis. It's just not feasible. So that's kind of how I've done it. And you'll either love me or hate me, I feel like, after you watch those videos, because it's the real me. And it's what I think. It's unfiltered. It's not rehearsed. I don't write things down, as you can tell when you watch them. I just kind of say what's on my mind and try to communicate to the people who I am and what I believe and how I would do the job.
There you go. There you go. Now, hopefully you get the reference. And my final question, was Dan Fielding a good district attorney?
Dan Fielding. Oh, I don't get the reference. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, man. Night Court.
Oh, yeah, no. Oh, that's another fun fact. I hate TV. I don't watch TV. I don't. I will say to my husband, hey, everybody says that this and this is a really good show, movie, whatever. Let's watch it. And he'd be like, yeah, okay. And the opening credits aren't off yet and I'm asleep. I am incapable of watching TV. I do not do it.
There's a lot of crap out there nowadays.
I would love to. Like, sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to watch this. And like, it has literally taken me days to watch a movie that I really enjoyed, because I'm too high strung and I'm either amped up or I'm asleep. I can't just sit down and relax. That's not me. But I would love to. And maybe now I'll watch Night Court.
Yeah, I'll have to ask the audience, guys, was Dan Fielding a good DA or not? I don't think he was, in all honesty, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now I'll go check him out and see what I think.
There you go. I want to thank everybody for joining us here today. I'm going to wish you all shalom bracha, peace and a blessing. Get out there and vote for Taylor Rockett, by the way.